Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line, the podcast where founders and business owners get in-depth insights and actionable takeaways from industry experts. We're here to help maximize your revenue, streamline your operations, and keep more of your hard-earned money. Now here's your host, Miguel Alexander Centeno.
Thanks for joining. I'm Miguel, founder and CEO of Centurion Firm, where I have the honor of leading a small tax strategy team serving businesses just like yours. And the cool thing about what I get to do is I get to work with businesses who are doing much cooler things. I do a deep dive with clients, mentors, and businesses I admire about their world, how they think about the area that they're an expert in, and we dive into how you as a business owner or operator can learn from the best. We have with us Matt Mulcahy, founder of Miami Cyber, a technology services firm built around a service-first approach to helping businesses implement technology, cybersecurity, and AI responsibly. With a background spanning technology consulting, managed IT services, cybersecurity, AI adoption, and business operations, Matt works closely with founders and small business owners to navigate the practical realities of modernizing their tech. He's an active member of the Miami founder community, which is how we met, and regularly hosts educational events focused on AI readiness and business technology. Matt, thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Miguel.
I kind of want to just ask you openly, like, you're an entrepreneur now. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur building a company?
The short answer, no. I don't think anyone has that drive in them out of the gate, right? And no one really understands what it is, but I think over time and through exposure, honestly, exposure was the biggest thing. It was where I started to get that inkling in my mind that, hey, I could probably do this, or, I think I could do this, which you need to have that, right? You need to have a little bit of self-confidence. Working primarily with a lot of different small business owners, like a consultative approach, a consultative role in my last company, and seeing firsthand kind of the owners and fostering a lot of relationships with other entrepreneurs, I kind of felt that it was something that was achievable. And, I created a little goal for myself by 40 was my goal. I'm 37 was to have my own business. So I started last year at 36.
Are you an 88 baby as well?
Yeah, I am. That's how we get along.
That's really awesome. And I'm curious, was anyone in your family, were your parents entrepreneurs?
My dad always kind of tinkered with ideas. Never really found the wild success, I would say, that I think he was seeking, but he definitely had an entrepreneurial spirit. And my mom definitely not super risk adverse, conservative. So never wanted to spin the wheel on that front, which I guess you kind of need that. That's how I am with my wife right now. I'm kind of the risk taker and she's got the steady job, which is a great, balance.
That is the balance. That was the same thing with me. It's somebody knows they're going to have a steady paycheck. And what's really cool is when that flips, now my wife doesn't work. So it's funny how that can flip. I'm rooting for you guys. And Miami Cyber now, tell me a little bit about it. I think sometimes when I start really thinking about it, I'm like, what is cybersecurity today? Let's get into that. What cyber is and what you're doing at Miami Cyber.
I got some advice and, some background context on the name. I don't know if I told you the story where we met, but when I decided to start a company, right, the first thing you need is a name. So through my experiences previously, I'd met someone, Lee Anderson in Cleveland, Ohio. He ran a very successful low voltage company, and he was like a subcontractor for one of our clients, and developed a relationship over a couple of years. And I was in Ohio and Cleveland one time, and we met for lunch, and he had grown his company very, very quickly. And I asked him what he attributed a lot of his success to. And he said, it's kind of crazy. But when I changed my name to Cleveland Cabling, everything seemed to just take off. And he said that they have a fleet of trucks and a lot of naming presence, but what he was named previously, which is something obscure around wiring and cabling, didn't really convey the core message of the company. So he changed it to Cleveland Cabling. So, he said the most important thing when people see our trucks or our name is they know where we are and what we do. And I thought that was a very powerful statement. And I kind of, pressure tested that logic against a couple of other owners I knew, and it tended to hold up. So when I started to look for names, I wanted to, people to know where I am and what I'm about really is what it is. Out of that spurned, Miami Cyber sounds cool. That's definitely registered, right? Someone definitely has a name already registered for that. Look in some biz and I'm like, oh man, no one's using this. So $400 later and a quick LLC registration, the company was born. So that was kind of the emphasis of the name. But, I wanted to use that name because everything we do across the pretty broad portfolio of services we have is rooted in cybersecurity best practices. It's a, belief I have because I've been way too close to too many awful situations, from fallout of getting hacked, from people losing contracts because they can't attest to third-party risk management. So it's really a belief for me. And all this stuff is easier to do when you're like an SMB, as opposed to when you get larger. I always equate it to like, hey, when you're applying these technologies and you're running risk management, it's like turning a dinghy when you're small, like a boat, versus turning a cruise ship, right? You don't need a whole dredge forward and a bunch of space. You can be a lot more agile. And then once it's done, you can kind of scale it in a much more relatable way, or a much more predictable way, I should say. So that was kind of the impetus of why I named the company what I did. Our core focus and really what's at the root of everything we do, which is kind of that, cybersecurity element.
Yeah, and we'll get into what cybersecurity is and what it touches in a second, but tell me a little bit about how you made the leap. What were you before, and why did you think mining cyber was a great idea?
So like I said, I always had a goal for myself by 40. So I was always kind of on that horizon. I was a partner at a previous tech firm. Prior to this, things were heating up in the age of AI. This is like the beginning of last year, just to give you some time context, where, AI was really starting to come on the scene and we had to get ahead of it, right? It's kind of like an impending wave. And as like your tech guy, right, you have to have competencies and you have to have knowledge around these emerging technologies because your clients are inevitably going to ask. And the worst thing you can have is no answer, let alone the wrong answer, right? So I kind of had a big push to push that forward, honestly, disagreements in a partnership. And so that ended up ending. I was getting courted to some very, lucrative jobs, but it kind of felt like a trap. It was like an inflection point. Like, okay, my wife has a great steady job. I can get her insurance. We can really like ratchet back our expenses. Then I can go for this thing that I've always wanted. Or I can go into this world where I'm making, $250,000 and be like stuck there forever. Because that's like hard to walk away from. So, I think I applied to one job and I felt like disgusted with myself. Like you're really going to go back to work for someone else. And it's like, I have that gut feeling. You never know if it's going to work until you do it right. So I had that gut feeling. So I think like I applied to jobs for like one day. I did like one application and my wife got home. She's like, how many jobs do you apply to today? And I was like, I started a company. So, and then off and running. And that was last May. I think May 22nd. I was the registration date. So it's just over a year. Yeah. And here we are.
That's awesome.
I don't want to say better than I could have ever imagined, but in some sense, I would tend to say that, right? Could we be a $10 million company right now? No, that was really on my radar. I mean, what I wanted to make was, I honestly don't know. I have a goal for this year and we're on track, but, it's so hard to say, hey, this is where I want to go. And then like really know where you're going and like definitely plans, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You want to test the waters when you start. And I think, it's hard to be it's good to have defined goals, but it's hard to have the right goals before you really start. Would you agree?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big thing for me was the gap I saw in the market was that smaller companies starting out really under like 10 employees, my impetus, and I hurt myself sometimes. It's like I'm too nice and I try to give too much. And like my real focus was, hey, help companies get all their tech organized and their cybersecurity posture well-defined, like in line with their risk management, because everyone's got different risk tolerance. And, this cyber doesn't need to be the same for everybody, but make sure it's well sized for the organization where they are and it's suited to scale. Because what I saw in my last company, a lot of times these new clients would come in is like, oh, we're 100 employees and it's impossible to kind of retroactively apply a lot of these controls and a lot of these things to, a car that's running, right? So what we always say is like, it's changing the oil when the car is running. Like it's very, very difficult and not really possible because it's hard to hit the brakes and the organization is just less agile at that size. At a lot of the time, like these MSP, managed service providers, there's no one really knows them. I really dislike that acronym. Mm-hmm. Like outsourced IT companies that really target like 25 to 100 employees because they drive more revenue. And it kind of left the gap in the micro segment of the market, really under 20 employees, because Obviously, they didn't prioritize it as a budget, but what I can tell you, I've seen over the last like 6 or 7 years of selling into the SMB space is that there's more appetite than ever in that smaller space. I think people understand the value of technology much more from like these new founders that they're like, okay, I want great tech the day I start my company. I don't want to wait to realize some of these gains. And now with AI is more true than ever. I mean, what we're doing here with AI at the size that we're at is out of control.
For those listening that, I think I'm part of this group, where it's like, I hear cybersecurity all the time. Like what are the main core issues for SMB owner that feed into cybersecurity and what you guys do?
The number one risk surface is your people.
So here's what just happened. Matt said something big. Your people are your biggest security risk. We need to pause here because this is backwards from how most of us think about cybersecurity. We imagine hackers. We imagine some 22-year-old in a hoodie in a dark room, fingers flying over a keyboard, breaking through firewalls. Wrong. The reality is way simpler and way scarier. A well-meaning accountant gets a phishing email that looks like it came from you. It has your logo. It has the right tone. She clicks a link. Done. Your entire network is compromised. Or a salesperson puts a sensitive client file into the free ChatGPT account to write a quick proposal because nobody told him or her not to. Now that data is part of an AI training set, visible to competitors, potentially exposed. This isn't about malice. This is about education. And educating your people is the most important part of the equation. Now let's get back to the conversation with Matt. So Matt, when you come into a new client, say a 10-person startup, and you see that gap, what does it actually look like in the first 30 days?
They're the ones that can kind of undercut all of the great software controls, hardware controls that you put in place, right? You got the best spindle security on the planet. If someone holds the door open, it doesn't really matter, right? And they tailgate someone into a secure area, right? You found the best phishing system in the world. Someone doesn't take the training or your best email security and they click a link they shouldn't have because they weren't trained, that doesn't really matter. So it's about understanding that cybersecurity is not one thing. It's not like, hey, we have cybersecurity. It's a layer, like a web, to build a holistic defense for your business to understand. And again, it's all contextual based on your risk. A lot of what drives kind of like bigger or smaller cybersecurity budgets is trying to like an industry or like a compliance requirement, or what I even see now, which is kind of very new in the market, I would say, are people want it without being required, which is a new appetite that historically has not been there because I think people are more risk aware and are aware of, it's all over the news now, are more aware of the threats out there. So they're taking it a little more seriously than they used to.
The top concerns that I can imagine are definitely phishing, definitely like our clients' data getting exposed, anything in the financial space, like, our ACH account number information like, what else are you helping small business owners kind of think about that maybe is not top of mind?
From a phishing perspective, it's crazy now that it's transitioning from like email phishing to voice phishing, which is like vishing, which is kind of the corny term. But, what they need are, I think 10 seconds of your audio can create a 95% accurate recreation of your voice. So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, for a wire transfer, our internal policy is to pick up the phone and call the controller to approve a wire. And now, they hijack their number or that controller's calling you, sounding like them, telling you to send a wire to kind of cut that off. And now you want to trust that, there's a likelihood that could be spoofed, right?
Like I just heard like a publicly traded company took a call from their CFO to wire millions of dollars. They did it.
Yeah, in Hong Kong.
Yeah, in Hong Kong.
Yeah, $23 million.
Will you actually share that story?
So what they actually did is they got on a Microsoft Teams call and they ran like a virtual overlay. So it looked and it sounded like the guy on the Teams call. So it's video and voice. And they authorized a $25 million wire, right? You can look it up, just look up Hong Kong, 25 million. It'll be the first article that pops up. And honestly, that was like 10 months ago at this point, 12 months ago. So, it's only gotten like exponentially better, the technologies, and they're only more accessible now too, which is part of the problem, right? I mean, we went from a world where we would have like script kiddies is what they would call them, like 5 or 6 years ago, where you could go on like an open marketplace and you can buy scripts or hacks that, hey, I know your IP address for your office. You can put the IP address in a script and run the script. It required a little more technical know-how to keep those types of attacks. But now they're selling these AI models where you can just type in natural language, hey, I want to hack Miguel. And that's what you got to do. I don't really got to give it much more. It'll go out, it'll scrape all the information, or it'll start to build a profile to execute these attacks on. There's like AI ransomware as a service. So it's a whole industry. So it's evolving very quickly and it's becoming more accessible.
I want you to really picture this for a second. You're on the C-suite of a publicly traded company. Someone calls you on Microsoft Teams. You see their face on the screen. You hear the voice. It's the same person that you've talked to for years. It's your boss. There's no question in your mind about who it is. And in that moment, your boss authorizes a $25 million wire transfer to another entity. Except it wasn't really your boss. It was AI. Now, I need to tell you something that we should be thinking about. It should be keeping us up at night. 10 seconds. That's all the technology needs right now. 10 seconds of your voice, and AI can create a 95% accurate clone. The main issues are phishing, vishing. What else?
Phishing. I mean, you need to encrypt your devices. If someone swipes your laptop, I mean, at a minimum, that's got to be encrypted. That's very basic. And, a lot of what we do, we was on a client call this morning talking through this, is from a enablement perspective. There are specific standards that we deploy to make sure the company has all of the foundational baseline items checked to really move forward in this day and age and start to adopt these emerging technology, primarily AI. It's important to understand. And one of the big things we're seeing right now is, the use of data and understanding how that data is flowing throughout the organization and even external to the organization, because believe it or not, it's not good enough just to control the data flow within like the safe confines of like your Microsoft 365 or Google tenant anymore. You actually need to be able to have some semblance of control, even once that data leaves those, digital fortresses. And, we use Microsoft Purview for that. And we can control and recall data once it's even been shared external to the organization, because, the last thing you want is you're sending financial data out and then someone's putting that financial data in their public AI, their free ChatGPT subscription, and use it. But how do you control that? And then it's getting, tracked back to you. It's like, that's tricky. So luckily there are great technologies that are emerging. To find a provider that has the competencies to deploy that, is kind of the diamond in the rough, I would say. But that's really why I started this business, because I saw things evolving at a pace and I saw the risk profiles kind of just like exploding. I thought that people would be more aware than ever and more willing than ever to start to take this conversation more seriously in an early stage. And that has really been the big driver. And I think what's driven a lot of our success.
That is awesome. And I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the listeners here are SMBs who are just like trying to keep it all together, right? And we'll have someone talk about digital advertising. You and I were talking about content creation earlier. Then I can send clients out talking about, tax payments and things. It's like there's so much to really handle. I mean, how do you encourage this busy entrepreneur to try and get a handle on their cybersecurity?
It's not going to happen overnight. So I think the first thing is just having a conversation, and the recommendations you get out of these, educate yourself, right? You don't have to hear it from me. I always tell people, you want to send them a proposal, I say, go find other IT providers in the area. And, I want you to be 1000% confident that we're the right partner, Bill. The big thing for me is like fit. So making sure that they're comfortable and they have an understanding of like what is available in the market and what is right for them, because not all businesses are well suited to work with this. We do a lot of due diligence and pre-sales to make sure that, our tolerances are aligned, our risk, philosophy is aligned, honestly, because the last thing you want to do is be 6 months, 12 months into an engagement and be arguing in a boardroom that, I don't believe in this, or I don't think we should be doing this, when it's like, I did something wrong early on. And unfortunately, I've been in a lot of those situations, and I plan to try to mitigate as many as I can. I'm not going to say never happen again, but do what I can to head those off if I have the controls.
Yeah. And I'm curious, year in year two of your business, how has your vision of what Miami Cyber does, how has that evolved here?
Oh man, I was actually thinking as I work on a new website, and I was telling you earlier, we have a fractional CMO I'm working with from London who's helped grow a lot of tech companies very quickly. Like I said, when I started this company, I kind of saw a gap in like the micro segmentation, and it still exists. But unfortunately, those very, very small clients can only drive so much revenue. So last year, part of what I did also as part of seeing the whole AI boom is I kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. I took an AI boot camp. I got certifications in AI. What I tell everyone is like, nobody went to college for this, right? If you're in any type of like technical leadership position, none of this stuff existed when you're in college. So like, you can't just de facto trust your IT team or your IT leader to be effective in this space if they're not doing these things. So, I'm going to self-promote here a little bit, but, we just got named a Claude Anthropic partner. So that required our staff to go through formal certifications. That required, we have to submit 2 case studies of client solutions that we deployed, and they interviewed one of our clients. So Anthropic is very rigorous about their selection for the partner program. And, part of what I'm doing the website is kind of like to reframe all this stuff. And so funny, I was telling you last Thursday, we were in the office and sitting across from my CMO, and we're just like, we made a realization, I've always kind of viewed myself as like a cybersecurity and IT company. And he's like, you're not an IT company that does AI, you're an AI company that does IT. And I was like, oh, it's like, through all of these initiatives, I've had my head down so much, just kind of like trying to stay ahead of the curve. And I kind of, tunneled my way to a place where, we're pretty far ahead of a lot of other providers. Just, I'm just going to say that egotistically. And I hear it from new clients signing up that the providers are not suited to help with this. I mean, I was in a boardroom for a law firm of 800 people, and their CIO and their CISO were in there with their C-suite. And they told us straight up, like, we have no intent in learning this stuff. We just need to bring in an expert from the outside, even though they're like, we're high-powered lawyers in a very high-paying position. It's like, this stuff is too new and moving too quickly. We're just tapping out.
First of all, congratulations. And I think if you're a small business owner trying to wrap your head around this and feeling like you're falling behind, I mean, that's where we lean on experts, like we lean on you guys the same way that, you'd lean on us for tax. I mean, finding someone that is staying with the curve of AI is really important in this space.
It's hard. I mean, well, first of all, it's impossible. Anyone tells you they're up to speed or they have all the answers, run away. Right. I'll never tell you we have every answer and we have every solution and our way is the only way to do things. I mean, that's just not true. So that's what I really speak a lot about in the educational piece of our speaking series is like, do your own due diligence, but also, try to kind of do some due diligence on the people that are espousing to be an expert because it's a modern day gold rush. Yeah. That's what I call it. And my job, and especially with some of the big content plans we have, is to try to distill a lot of the noise. Like if you go on LinkedIn, it's like nauseating. I mean, we post on our company page and I'll post stuff here and there, but oh my God, I mean, everyone's an expert.
Everyone's an expert. I used to like bookmark kind of new ways to use Claude. And now I don't even, I'm curious, what does it mean for you as a business owner to be an official Claude, an Anthropic partner?
Validation. I mean, that was a big one. It's one of those things where they announced it maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, I think, that they're opening some applications. And I was like, it doesn't hurt, right, to apply. Like, someone once told me closed mouths don't get fed. And I went through it and they validated our pipeline also, which was kind of sketchy at the time, which is like we only had a couple pipeline deals, but they were nice and they were sizable and they had a good context around them for what they were looking for. So not only did they look at, what we deployed, they had what's coming in our pipeline, and then they interviewed our client, and then we had to get formal certifications for our staff as well. What was great is they told us that we were like provisionally in before we had to do the certification. So that kind of alleviated a lot of the lift. So it's like, okay, well, now it's really worth it to spend the time and energy and money to pursue this stuff because we know we have like provisional acceptance. So yeah, that was definitely validating for sure.
No, that's huge. And like back to the SMB approach, I mean, I love that you talk about the kind of the micro market. I think a lot of business owners with 10, 20 people are, like, we don't want to be too early on this. Things are changing. What do you tell them as they're thinking about like what to do now?
What did you know is one of them. So it's like, obviously I'm thinking I had a call on Friday with one of these, they only have like 10 to 15 like computer users, but they have a much larger organization of like laborers and people that use computers or phones. And, they were kind of like teetering back and forth over a decision, and they signed. And they were just like, okay, well, we kind of have to do this to keep up. And that pressure is compounding, I think, with a lot of companies. I also believe that segment of business is in a very unique position in the fact that they are not carrying a large burden of human capital where, when you apply AI and some of these agentic technologies at a company of that size, maybe it displaces one or two people, whether you lay them off or whether you reskill them into, human capital intensive roles. Yeah. There's a conversation that needs to be had. But when you look at that for larger organizations, you're talking about displacing 40, 50 people. And that's a lot more burden to deal with to kind of make that pivot, kind of like trading that cruise ship as opposed to the dinghy. And I think that carries a lot more weight and it takes longer to do. So now all of a sudden you're much more agile, right? And when you're small in that segment, you have to use that agility as a competitive advantage.
Yeah, it's an opportunity. It certainly is.
For sure.
And what is like a pragmatic kind of right size cybersecurity approach look like for that 10 to 20 person startup?
Yeah, I mean, we run all of our clients on Microsoft 365 and we just deploy all the security solutions within that. So we have a formula, you could say, that we use that is pretty standardized across most clients. There's we have a minimum baseline that is probably higher than 95% of like standards that technology providers deploy. So it's a pretty high barrier to entry to kind of achieve that. And then once you're there, talking through like the friction and what kind of might slow people down, hey, I never used to have to use 2FA to log into these accounts. Now I do, right? So it's just like getting over those barriers and kind of thinking of a new way of working. I mean, I was looking at another call today. Okay, you have to re-authenticate once a week. And they're like, oh, really? We never re-authenticate. And then I have to explain to them like token theft and all these different attack vectors that can manifest from not refreshing the token that keeps you logged into these apps. And I think what I always say is like the difference between a good technology provider and a great technology provider is being able to foresee how changes can impact your organization. It's one thing to just be blindly changing things in an administrative console, but not thinking about and not having that foresight of like, how is this going to impact the organization and the user? And how can we head this off and communicate well? Can be, a night and day difference in how things are perceived.
That's great. And actually, as a good example, let's double click on authentication. What are best practices?
Every time you get a 6-digit code texted to you, that is not a safe thing anymore. Like you should not be getting any codes to your phone. So there are attack vectors called like SIM swapping. And just to explain what SIM swapping is, they steal your identity. They go to the AT&T store, they buy a SIM in your name, and they can plug it into a burner phone and they can receive all the text messages that you're getting. So that's like much easier than you would think. The local AT&T store guy is not very diligent at checking IDs and being like very thorough on that. And if you look at NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, we don't have like a governing framework that is enforced. The key word there being enforced across businesses across the U.S. When you get into like specific verticals in compliance, there's certain things that are required, but from just like a general operating perspective, no one is going to force you to do this stuff. And the government doesn't want to force you to do your stuff either. My wife is leaving. Sorry, it's just waving through my window. But what's important is to understand kind of trends and what is a best practice. And that's where NIST came from. So the government's like, hey, we're not going to force you to do anything, but we'll give you guidance. Okay. So generally a lot of our practices are following that framework that's deployed by NIST. But from an authentication perspective, the next thing they're about to hack away are passwords. Passwords are about to be named as, and that's a way different one for people to digest, right? I have a password for everything. What do you mean they're going to get rid of passwords? So pass keys are really going to replace that, which if you're on a Mac, you can use pretty much any password manager has the ability to create pass keys now. In Mac and Windows natively can store pass keys in their credential managers. So generally they're vetted with like biometric data. So like a fingerprint or a facial scan or a PIN. and they are like cryptographically more secure than a password. It's a much longer string and a hash that's tied to a hardware ID.
And do you have any thoughts on having your passkeys on your, Mac versus your iPhone?
Well, what's great now is they sync. So, with like the whole iOS ecosystem, I'm a Mac guy, I'm a huge Apple guy. You can call me an Apple homer or something, but what's great is the passkeys will sync across in that Microsoft and that Apple ecosystem. And now, we're Microsoft people and a lot of our clients have Macs as well. Those passkeys actually back up to the Microsoft ecosystem from your Apple devices as well. So, if you lose the device, you'll lose the passkey forever. Here's actually a method to restore that. So, but you still need a passkey and then like an additional. So that's like when you do a passkey on your phone or something, it scans your face also because it's still like two-factor authentication or MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. So it's using the passkey as one authentication method and then the biometrics as another. And that's pretty much for the foreseeable future where things are headed is that's going to be kind of like the de facto standard that is following like modern security guidelines.
Got it. So passkeys are good. Getting codes sent to you, not good.
SMS. You can get like the one-time code, like the ones that rotate every 30 seconds on your phone, TOTP, which is temporary one-time password. Those are great. Those are algorithmic. So very good. But the SMS is a no-no.
Let's talk a little bit about AI. I think something that you said to me at that dinner stuck with me, and it was this idea of adopting AI responsibly. And I think that all of us founders are pushed to roll out AI in our company, give people the power of AI. What are we not thinking about? And how do you think about rolling AI responsibly?
Like we talked about, starting this business kind of pivoted as I've gone through kind of my own AI journey, but getting to the point where I'm credentialed on a couple of the platforms and some of the leadership pieces, I came to found that the technology and the AI itself is like the least important of it. Like there's a lot of other elements that drive the success or failure of AI initiatives. And that's where I spend a lot of my focused time trying to educate people right now. Whereas you go like on LinkedIn and stuff like this, they're all just concerned about, the new Claude model's out, the new Chat GPT model's out. And I could care less. And that makes like the least amount of difference in the success or the failure of AI when you're talking about those models. But, when you look at the people that are espousing that, it's the people that don't really understand this stuff and understand the broader implications of these emerging technologies and how they impact organizations from the whole perspective. So, we're looking at responsible AI adoption. Generally, something I learned a long time ago is the policy drives the technology. So what I mean by that is like, you have to have written policies, especially from a risk perspective, of like what is acceptable, right? So like backing up before we even start talking about, specific models or anything is okay, well, what do we want to allow and what do we want to disallow, right? And the conversation behind this, how do we do that technically? But the point of the policy writing is we do this in the first 30 days with all of our clients is to get it on paper, get everyone in the room and get everyone on the same page. That's literally what it's an exercise in. Sure, it's like a risk thing and then it's a good CYA from like an insurance and legal perspective, but the main function of that is communication and coordination, which is, okay, this is the path we're charting on. Everyone's on the same page. You can't say you didn't know we're doing this, you're not doing this because you're supposed to read the policy. And you come back 6 months later and say, why are we doing this? We were sitting in the room when we all discussed this and you signed off on this. So, and there's a lot more than just the AI acceptable use policy, but in the context of AI, that's kind of the main core one. So the other items that are important are data. I'll give you a perfect example. Client signs with us and their previous technology partner, they came to them and said, we want Microsoft Copilot. They sold them the licenses and they said, have fun with Copilot. Yeah. 6 months later, the managing partner is like, we've been paying for this for 6 months and we have nothing to show for it. And like everyone is just kind of guessworking at it and there's nothing tangible. And he got fed up. I mean, this is my biggest client now. And I have like an AI ready check quiz on my website that kind of talks through all this and make them answer questions and kind of gives them a report. They brought me into the office and they signed the same day. He's like, I'm so tired of this. I need someone that knows what they're talking about. I need the expertise. And it's like, I would never sell you licenses in a vacuum. So like education is a huge part of it. You can't just throw these systems into these ecosystems and assume that the magic of AI is going to magically apply the outcomes that you're looking for. So the big things we do is education and really tailoring, right? We tailor the policies to the organization. And then behind that, we tailor the education plan to the organization as well. So whether you're using Claude or Copilot, Those are kind of the two main platforms we deploy on. And we tailor those training curriculums to your organization based on, hey, what data is allowable? How are we building different? Do we want to jump into agentic? So like, there's a lot of variables we look at, but everything is completely tailored. It's not like some generic course that someone's coming in to teach. It's really unique to your organization. We do that by way of kind of taking full ownership of the technology, which is like a big value proposition for us, is that we're consolidating what generally is serviced by like 3 vendors. And you don't have to deal with like the vendor overhead, which was a big problem for me in my last job. I would manage like 5 or 6 vendors. Why can't just one person do all this? So that was a big thing for me.
And let me ask you, like, what would you say the main differentiators between like a business that's using AI at a surface level, like maybe prompting here and there, and a business that's really incorporating AI in a way that compounds?
Speed, quality. People kind of like say, assuming they are deploying these AI solutions, they have good like evaluation models and they have good systems in place to run, check, and make sure the outputs are above a certain threshold. There are multiple ways to do that. Those are kind of the main things. You're kind of maintaining a high bar of quality, but you're doing it faster. And for us, that's a big thing that I focus on is like, I don't want to dilute our quality and I don't want to dilute kind of the excellence that I'm trying to foster just to do something faster. So it's how do you maintain both of those things? And one of the big things for us is really moving quickly and yielding great outcomes quickly in a space traditionally that is very like bogged down with like change management and a lot of like layers and friction. And we do that by, like I said, kind of coordinating and orchestrating broader portfolio of services and work under one roof. So we can really, parallel process many of those initiatives.
Yeah. Speed is so important because I think if we didn't use AI, or if we were still using ChatGPT, we'd be in a very different bucket than where we are now. We're more on the co-work side, I could talk a little bit. What I'm really interested in, like, what are some of the guardrails you think about when it comes to using AI, when it comes to like our client information?
So I don't use the free ones, right? A general rule of thumb everyone should follow is if the service is free, you are the product. That's the fundamental truth of anything that you sign up for. Nothing is free. Facebook, they're harvesting your data and they're selling it on data exchanges, right? They're harvesting your picture data to do facial recognition training. Like, just because something is free doesn't mean they're not productizing or monetizing something that you're giving them. So, it's no different in the AI world, right? When you put that data into those systems and you're using a free ChatGPT account, they're using that data to train the models. And there's a risk that that data can come out the other end to somebody else that you're just completely unaware of, and there's no way to track that. So, just off the top, and even like from a consumer side, pick one and just pay for it. And if you're really leveraging it, you'll easily get the $20 a month in value if you kind of are applying yourself and using it for something that is offsetting, an equitable amount of time. On the business side, like I said, we primarily focus in the whole Microsoft ecosystem, which is really Copilot Studio, and Foundry. And Foundry is like the top tier, really enterprise mostly. A couple of projects in that space. And then on the Claude side, we're habitual Claudettes here. I don't know, Claude users, I don't know what you want to call us, but the Claude partner, obviously we use it very heavily. And the real differentiator, I would say, like today, if you had to ask me, are between not the companies that are using AI, but the companies that are leveraging MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. Right. And to help everyone understand what MCP is, I feel like I've given this spiel like 20 times in the past 2 days because this is such a belief of mine. So when you use ChatGPT or Claude, it's one of the great models. They are LLMs, which are large language models. They're trained with a ton of data, and they're generally very good at general tasks. So most companies and businesses know specifically what they want to do and specifically how they want to work. Specificity and generality are pretty far apart on the spectrum, right? So how do you merge those two things and yield outcomes that are strong? Basically, this problem was recognized, like a year and a half ago, and people started building under a standardized protocol called Model Context Protocol. Think of it like as an API. So application programming interface, it's a way to interface with a third-party application. perfect example. Let's use HubSpot, a CRM that's very popular across the entire world right now, right? We're a HubSpot partner. So I use this because we use this internally. So I have a bunch of data in HubSpot. My AI system in Claude, just using it, if I found it for Teams, is not aware of all that data in HubSpot, right? There's some like turnkey integrations, but with the MCP, what the MCP does is it gives the large language model, the very general model, 3 key things. It gives it context, right? MCP model context protocol, which it says, hey, this is what HubSpot is. This is what it does. Here's a bunch of task prompts. If you wanted to query my data, which the second thing it gives it is like the data tables and the API tables to say, here's how our data schema is built. And this is what definitions for each single data table are. So it's giving it, here's how you work with me. Here's how my data is structured. And then the last thing is it gives it guidance on like tools. So it says, okay, if you want to create a new contact, it gives like a specific tool function. It gives it the context and it gives it the data field. So it kind of gives it all the specificity that's needed to give a general model enough information to be very effective and to provide very powerful responses to your prompts. So now all of a sudden I was literally working on something today and I'm like, it's like I'm Thanos putting in like little stones in the gauntlet every time I add an MCP server to our Claude instance. Because again, you can't do like shared MCP yet in Copilot. So that's where our Claude instance is really powerful comparatively between the two platforms, where, we have about, I think our last count is 16 different MCP connections in our Claude instance that are shared amongst all our staff. So, it's very context aware of where all of our data is, of how everything works. It can write out, right? If I want to write a new email campaign, I don't open instantly and write the email campaign. I tell Claude, write me a new email campaign, and it writes it in instantly for me. Because it says, hey, I know what you use for cold email. I have the context from instantly how to interface with the cold email platform. I have the stored prompts and how to prompt it to write it. And I have the tools to actually create that in that separate platform. Even though it's outside of it, my inference is all sitting inside that Claude desktop or Claude web application because I have MCP set up. So right now what I see are like the big divergence in terms of value realization for AI is specifically the companies that are pushing MCP and, evaluating your tools where they have it built in, which, more and more SaaS providers are recognizing like, okay, people aren't going to interface with us through our web console anymore. We kind of got to give up that game.
Wow.
And right, there's a whole vibe coding conversation that's, here also of don't even use these apps, right? So I was literally reading something on HubSpot. The CEO said the other day, like, hey, our money's not going to be made from people paying a subscription to work in our app. It's going to be by having the tools and the functions and the data available in our platform. And we'll just charge people on the exchange of data going in and out. So I believe that like everyone's just going to do work through your inference of Claude Desktop. Like you're just going to do all your work in that. And it's going to get written out to all the different systems and pulled back in dynamically. And you're just going to interface there instead of having that context between windows, between browsers, between apps and stuff like that. We're kind of already there.
Yeah, we're sitting on the financial side where it's like, if you've got the QuickBooks MCP, why would I go to QuickBooks to figure out the net profit of my client? I would just interface with Claude.
And then where it gets really powerful is like pull from QuickBooks this, then cross-reference it here, and then pull from this too, the data here, and it all merges it there. And that's running on the side while you're writing an email, right? And it's like, you're not having to jump between 3 browsers and make consolidated spreadsheet. Like, and that's when I talk about speed, right? That's really where you start talking, okay, well, compound that times 20 people working that way. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden you're moving, right? Now all of a sudden you're like, okay, what do we work on now, right? It's like, well, and this is what I tell people when they come to work for me, I don't want you to work the way you work at your last job. Like you're doing the same thing that you're doing at your last job. That's a failure on my part because I didn't train you enough and help you understand how to interface with these tools. And, my challenge to you is like really critically rethink the way you do things, right? If you're in marketing and you use Canva and you mainly worked everything up, well, guess what? I just canceled my Canva subscription because it sucks. And we just have Claude Design and we have Figma, right? Because we can put Claude Code to Figma and work on wireframes for web designs in a disgustingly short amount of time. Once you have a brand kit and you have some, skills and standards. And it's just, you shouldn't be manually creating that stuff anymore.
That's a good call out. Well, I wanted to ask you, Matt, just about the Miami ecosystem before we do our rapid rounds of questions. Miami is a hub of founders that has been growing the last couple of years. Tell me a little bit about how you're seeing the Miami ecosystem.
Oh man, Miami is an interesting place. The first thing I'll say about Miami, and this is from someone that is, born and raised in South Florida. I was born in Broward, but I lived in Miami since 2018. I've always been down here. The most accurate description I've heard of Miami is a sunny place for shady people. So, not to dog Miami. It's more with forewarnings.
Yeah.
To just understand, what you're getting into. But all that to be said, there are incredible local operators and founders that are building great collaborative spaces to chat with other founders, to learn from other founders, and to build. I mean, I'll just give some shout outs. Burhan is the head of the AI school. He's the one who set up the Miami AI school, the boot camp that I took that was in person. I was doing a lot of learning on YouTube in my office until the late hours of the night to try to get up to speed. And it honestly gets lonely, right? Listening to Nate Herc or whoever, I'm just grinding away on YouTube. And I was like, man, it would be nice to kind of get out of my office once. But two, hear from other people what they're struggling with, and, hear from other people, like, ideas of what they're building. And what I always say is, like, this is the most creative technology has ever been. Generally, technology was very, sterile and cold. And now I feel that it's very accessible and it's very creative. And the people that are, creative and dynamic are the ones that are going to succeed. But anyways, back to Miami. Purple Horizons is an AI venture firm that does really bleeding edge things. And Ralph and Gianni, those guys run a monthly meetup for local tech entrepreneurs and tech founders. And, there are very great local circles. There's a lot of noise. You balloon any given day for the city of Miami. There's a bunch of events, but, I'd say it's 50-50 in the events that I go to that are a complete wash and the ones that are not. And what I'd say is don't judge a book by its cover, right? I went to some hyped agentic thing at the Tesla superstore that was all built up, spent a lot of money. It was probably the most vanity driven fluff type event that I've ever been to. It was terrible. And meanwhile, you can go to a cruddy little bar and it's filled with people that are grinding every day, or engineers that are, developers, AI architects, and you get more substantive conversations. I have an engineering background, so I can geek out on any of that stuff, right? So it's very dynamic, is what I would say.
Well, great place to build.
Yeah, why not? The state rules are great. I mean, Florida, you're in Texas, so you have kind of the same thing over there. So, Florida, Texas, Tennessee are kind of the business-friendly states. So, yeah, it's good. It's great energy as well, Dave. If you need energy, you go to the beach, go to downtown here, and you'll get the energy. I mean, yeah, there's hustle. The hustle culture is real here. I mean,
I love that.
But, as long as you're hustling ethically and, with, I would think, a positive mindset, then it's all good.
You gotta watch out. You gotta watch out. Is what I'm hearing. But we love Miami. It was great, obviously, connecting with the community there.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We'll certainly be back. So hope that happens sooner rather than later. Let me ask you, Matt, the rapid round of questions. We ask these to every guest. And the first question is, what's a favorite book that's had a tremendous influence on you?
Traction, Gino Wickman, EOS, all the way.
Me too. What's a habit or skill that you wish you had?
Paying attention to one thing at a time.
Good. What's your most recent favorite AI or productivity tool?
Oh, man. Microsoft Teams Facilitator and the paid Copilot plan for Teams recordings and note-taking. Incredible. It's built into the subscription.
What a call out. What's the last place you traveled to for fun?
Went to Portugal for a wedding. So that was nice. Lisbon.
Lisbon?
Yeah.
Oh, very
cool.
That
was awesome.
Love that. All right. And if money were no object, what job would you do for a week?
A week?
A week. You don't have to do it forever.
F1 driver.
Oh, I love that. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been good getting to know you, and I'm glad we had this.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for making the time for me.
Thank you for joining this episode. To make this conversation more actionable, I encourage you to write down one or two things that you took away. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, where I'm fairly active. Look for Miguel Alexander Centeno. And if you found value in this show, please subscribe on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts. And stick around for the next show. What you'll learn might change your business.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Bottom Line. This podcast is brought to you by Centurion Firm, bringing you Fortune 500 tools and strategies to help small businesses and other organizations with tax, accounting, and technology implementation that maximize cash flow and long-term value. Learn more at centurionfirm.com.